Rain lashed against the glass facade of Harrington Tower as the night shift wound down. Neon lights from the city below reflected off the wet windows, creating kaleidoscopic patterns across the marble floors. Then came the explosion of sound that shattered the tranquility: gunfire, breaking glass, and the piercing wail of alarms. In that moment of pure chaos, CEO Alexandra Sterling faced real danger for the first time in her 34 years of privilege. Yet across the room, William Carter, a young janitor, stood unnaturally still, his eyes cold and calculating, displaying a calm that seemed impossible. No one could have imagined that the quiet janitor's calm defiance would save lives, unravel betrayal, and forever change the powerful woman who witnessed it. Alexandra Sterling commanded attention wherever she went. Her platinum blonde hair fell in perfect waves past her shoulders, framing piercing blue eyes that could freeze a boardroom with a single glance. The red power dress she wore that evening wasn't just clothing, it was armor, a declaration of dominance in a world where she'd fought tooth and nail to prove herself worthy of the Sterling Empire. Born as the only daughter of the Sterling fortune, she'd spent her entire adult life demonstrating that nepotism hadn't earned her the CEO position. She'd earned it through ruthless determination and an intellect that left competitors scrambling. But beneath the polished exterior lived a different woman. Alexandra trusted no one completely, not even those who'd worked beside her for years. Every relationship was transactional, every smile calculated. She'd learned early that vulnerability was weakness, and weakness in her world meant destruction. The penthouse apartment she returned to each night was beautiful but empty, filled with expensive art that no one else ever saw. She'd had relationships, of course, but they always ended the same way, with men who either wanted her money or couldn't handle her power. William Carter was invisible by design. At 30 years old, he moved through the building like a ghost, pushing his cleaning cart through marble corridors while executives rushed past without a glance. His broad shoulders and sturdy frame suggested strength, but he kept them slightly hunched, making himself smaller, less noticeable. His brown hair was always neatly trimmed, his deep-set eyes carefully neutral. He worked the night shift by choice, preferring the empty hallways to the bustling chaos of business hours. No one knew that 5 years ago, William had been Lieutenant Carter, one of the youngest Special Forces operatives in his unit. No one knew about the mission in Eastern Europe that went catastrophically wrong, or about the 3 teammates who didn't make it home because of a decision he'd made. The Medal of Honor sat in a storage unit across town, along with everything else from his former life. He'd chosen this invisibility, this mundane existence, as penance. Every night, he cleaned the offices of people who'd never known the weight of a life or death decision, and he found peace in the simplicity of it. The executive floor also housed Evelyn Brooks, Alexandra's 29-year-old secretary, whose quick wit and flawless organizational skills had made her indispensable. Evelyn admired her boss with something approaching worship, seeing in Alexandra everything she hoped to become. Tonight, she'd stayed late to prepare for tomorrow's board meeting, her usual confidence intact as she arranged documents in the conference room. Clinton Hayes represented everything wrong with corporate security. At 40, the head of security carried himself with the swagger of someone who'd watched too many action movies and believed them all. His expensive suit couldn't hide the soft middle that came from years behind a desk, and his condescending attitude toward the lower staff was legendary. He particularly enjoyed reminding William about the building's hierarchy, never missing an opportunity to assert his authority over the janitor. The 2 men who burst through the emergency stairwell at 11:43 p.m. wore black ski masks and carried automatic weapons with practiced ease. They moved with military precision, clearly following a rehearsed plan. The first man was tall and lean, his voice carrying a slight southern accent when he barked orders. The second was shorter but stockier, silent except for the occasional grunt of acknowledgement. They weren't common criminals, their movements were too coordinated, their objectives too specific. Harrington Tower stood as a monument to corporate power, its 52 floors of glass and steel reaching toward the sky like a finger pointing at heaven. The building housed Sterling Industries, a tech conglomerate worth billions, and its servers contained enough sensitive data to shift global markets. The executive floor, where Alexandra often worked late, was supposed to be impenetrable keycard access, biometric scanners, and Clinton's supposedly elite security team. But on this rain-soaked Thursday night, all those precautions would prove worthless. The first gunshot shattered the illusion of safety. The bullet punched through the conference room window, spiderwebbing the reinforced glass and sending everyone diving for cover. Screams erupted as employees scrambled, knocking over chairs and sending papers flying. A young analyst named Marcus froze completely, his mind unable to process the reality of the situation. Sarah from accounting crawled under her desk, sobbing uncontrollably. Alexandra's initial reaction was to take charge, as she always did. She stood up, ready to demand answers, to restore order, through sheer force of will. But when the second gunman rounded the corner and pointed his weapon directly at her, she felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood: pure, paralyzing fear. Her hands trembled as she raised them slowly, her mouth suddenly dry, her legendary composure cracking like thin ice. Clinton Hayes fumbled with his radio, shouting codes that no one seemed to hear. His elaborate security protocols collapsed instantly under real pressure. He pressed himself against the wall, sweat pouring down his face, his earlier bravado evaporating. When one of the gunmen looked his way, Clinton actually whimpered a sound that would have been comical if the situation weren't so deadly. William observed everything from his position near the supply closet. His breathing remained steady, controlled 4 counts in, 4 counts out, just as he'd been trained. His eyes tracked the gunmen's positions, noted their weapons, calculated angles and distances. The familiar weight of assessment settled over him, the same feeling he'd had dozens of times in hostile territories. He spotted 3 potential exit routes, 2 improvised weapons, and 5 employees who were dangerously exposed. Without making any sudden movements, William began gesturing subtly to the exposed employees. A slight nod toward the heavy desk, a pointed glance at the alcove near the printers. Most were too panicked to notice, but Jennifer from HR saw him and understood, crawling slowly toward better cover. Then Thomas from IT caught on, pulling another colleague with him. William's calm seemed to radiate outward, providing an anchor in the chaos. Alexandra noticed the movement in her peripheral vision. Through her fear, she watched this janitor, this man whose name she'd never bothered to learn quietly, taking control of the situation. He wasn't panicking, wasn't freezing, wasn't even sweating. Instead, he was systematically ensuring people found safety, all while maintaining his invisible facade. The contradiction stunned her. Clinton, with all his training and bluster, was useless. But the janitor was managing the crisis with a competence that seemed impossible. The taller gunman spotted Alexandra and moved toward her with purpose. "You," he said, his voice muffled by the mask but still commanding. "You're Sterling. Open the executive vault. Now." Alexandra's mind raced. The vault contained more than money. It held prototype designs, government contracts, and encryption keys that could compromise national security. I need 2 other executives to open it," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's a triple lock system." The gunman pressed the barrel of his weapon against her temple. "Don't lie to me." Evelyn let out a terrified shriek from behind an overturned table. Clinton remained frozen, his hand still uselessly clutching his radio. The room held its collective breath, waiting for violence that seemed inevitable. William stepped forward. The movement was subtle, non-threatening, but it drew the gunman's attention. "She's telling the truth," William said, his voice carrying a calm authority that seemed incongruous with his janitor's uniform. Sterling Industries implemented the triple lock system after the 2018 breach. I've seen the executives use it when I'm cleaning. Takes 3 key cards and 3 biometric scans. The gunman swung his weapon toward William. "And who the hell are you?" "Nobody," William replied, maintaining eye contact. "Just the janitor. But I'm here every night. I see everything. I know she can't open that vault alone. And if you kill her, you'll never get what you came for." The shorter gunman spoke for the first time. "We don't have time for this." "Then let me help," William continued, his tone reasonable, almost conversational. "I know where the other 2 executives with access are. Mr. Chen is in his office on 48. Miss Rodriguez is probably in the parking garage she always leaves at 11:50. You can still get what you need, but not if you start shooting." Alexandra stared at William, her mind struggling to reconcile this composed negotiator with the quiet man who emptied her trash every night. His intervention had shifted the gunman's focus, giving her precious seconds to breathe, to think. She noticed details she'd never seen before: the way he positioned himself to block the gunman's line of sight to several employees, the calculated distance he maintained that would allow him to react if needed. The gunman seemed to consider William's words. The barrel of his weapon wavered between Alexandra and the janitor. "You're awfully helpful for a nobody." William shrugged, the gesture deliberately casual. "I just don't want anyone to die." "That's bad for everyone, you included. Dead executives mean lockdown protocols, FBI involvement, and you leaving empty-handed. But if everyone cooperates, you get what you want, and we all go home." Alexandra couldn't reconcile what she was witnessing. Inside, her carefully constructed worldview was fracturing. She'd built her life on the belief that power came from position, from money, from the ability to command others through authority. Yet here was a janitor, someone she dismissed as beneath notice, displaying more leadership and control than anyone else in the room. She thought about all the nights she'd stayed late, never acknowledging William as he worked around her. How many times had she been on confidential calls while he emptied her trash? How many sensitive documents had she left on her desk, assuming he was too insignificant to matter? The shame of her arrogance burned through her fear. William's mind operated on multiple levels simultaneously. The soldier in him had already identified the gunman's likely military background from their stance and weapon handling. Their plan was too sophisticated for common criminals, which meant someone inside had provided intelligence. He cataloged every detail, the slight favor of the tall one's left leg, suggesting an old injury, the shorter one's nervous trigger discipline, the fact that they'd known exactly when to strike and which floor to target. But he also wrestled with the implications of revealing himself. 5 years of carefully maintained anonymity, 5 years of peace in obscurity, could shatter in an instant. If he acted, if he showed what he was truly capable of, there would be questions, investigations, media, attention. The quiet life he'd built as penance for his failures would end. Yet as he watched Alexandra's hands tremble, as he heard Evelyn's suppressed sobs, as he saw his co-workers cowering in terror, the soldier's code reasserted itself. Protect the innocent. Complete the mission. Worry about consequences later. The decision, when it came, felt inevitable. The lights suddenly went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. The building's automatic security protocol had triggered, probably from someone hitting a panic button. Sirens wailed from multiple floors, and the elevators would be locked down, trapping everyone where they were. "Move," the tall gunman shouted. "Everyone to the east stairwell." Now, chaos erupted anew as the gunman herded employees toward the emergency exit. William seized the moment, grabbing Alexandra's arm with surprising gentleness. "Stay close to me," he whispered. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back." Alexandra nodded, too shocked to question why she was trusting a janitor with her life. William guided her toward the group, but he was actually positioning them near a maintenance corridor he knew led to a service elevator that operated on a separate system. As they moved through the red-tinged darkness, William noticed Clinton Hayes doing something unexpected. The security chief wasn't cowering anymore. He was on his phone, texting rapidly despite the situation. William's suspicion crystallized into certainty. Inside job. Clinton was communicating with the gunman. The group reached the stairwell, and the gunman began forcing everyone down. But William had counted heads. 3 employees were still hiding in the conference room, including Marcus, the analyst who'd frozen. In the confusion, the gunman hadn't noticed. "I forgot my insulin," William announced suddenly. "It's in my cart. I'm diabetic. I need it." The short gunman swung his weapon around. "Too bad. I'll go into shock without it," William persisted. "Then you'll have a medical emergency on top of everything else. Let me grab it." 30 seconds. The tall gunman cursed. "Make it fast. You," he pointed at Alexandra, "go with him. Make sure he doesn't try anything stupid." William and Alexandra moved back toward the main floor. As soon as they were out of sight, William pulled her into the maintenance corridor. "We have maybe 90 seconds before they realize we're not coming back," he whispered. "There are 3 people still hiding. We need to get them and get out." "How do you know?" Alexandra began. "Not now. William was already moving, and she had no choice but to follow. They found Marcus first, catatonic behind an overturned table. William didn't waste time with words. He simply lifted the younger man in a fireman's carry. "Conference room," he told Alexandra. "Under the main table. 2 more." She ran ahead, finding Jennifer and Thomas huddled together. "Come on," she urged, surprised by the authority in her own voice. "We're getting out." The service elevator was old and slow, but it was working. As the doors closed, they heard shouting from the stairwell their absence had been discovered. William set Marcus down gently and pulled out his phone, doing something Alexandra couldn't see. "What are you?" "Sending building schematics to the police," he said. "They'll need to know the gunman's likely exit routes." The elevator descended with agonizing slowness. On the 32nd floor, it suddenly lurched to a stop. The gunman had triggered a building-wide elevator shutdown. "Out," William commanded, forcing the doors open. They spilled into a dark hallway. Gunfire echoed from somewhere above them. The police had likely arrived, and the situation was escalating. William led them through a maze of corridors, his familiarity with the building evident in every turn. Alexandra realized he knew Harrington Tower better than she did, despite her name being on the deed. They reached another stairwell, and William listened carefully before opening the door. "Clear, down to 28. Then we crossed to the north stairs. The police will have the lower floors secured by now." As they descended, a door burst open above them. The short gunman appeared, weapon raised. William reacted instantly, pushing Alexandra against the wall and shielding her with his body. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Alexandra felt William jerk, saw blood spreading across his shoulder, but he didn't go down. Instead, he grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and hurled it with devastating accuracy. The gunman tumbled backward, his weapon clattering down the stairs. William grabbed the gun with his good hand. "Move," he ordered. His voice strained, but still calm. They ran, William leaving a trail of blood drops that looked black in the emergency lighting. Alexandra found herself supporting him, her designer dress now stained with his blood. The sight of it, the visceral reality of his sacrifice, shattered something inside her. No one had ever bled for her before. No one had ever deemed her worth saving at their own expense. They burst through the exit onto the 28th floor, where a SWAT team immediately surrounded them. "Clear," William shouted, dropping the weapon and raising his good hand. "We're hostages," CEO Sterling and employees. The next minutes blurred together police procedures, medics treating William's shoulder, everyone being rushed to different locations for safety. But Alexandra refused to leave William's side, even when the EMTs tried to separate them. "This man saved my life," she declared, with all the authority she could muster. "He stays with me." As the medic worked on William's shoulder in the back of the ambulance, Alexandra finally asked the question burning in her mind. "Who are you?" "Really?" William met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw the weight he carried. "Former Lieutenant William Carter, 75th Ranger Regiment. Left the service 5 years ago." "Why?" The word came out softer than she intended. "Bad mission. Bad call. 3 good men died because I made the wrong decision." His voice was flat, matter of fact, but Alexandra heard the pain beneath it. "Couldn't wear the uniform after that. Couldn't pretend to be a hero when I knew the truth. So you became a janitor?" "I became invisible," he corrected. "It was peaceful. No decisions that mattered. No lives hanging in the balance. Just floors to clean, and trash to empty." Alexandra absorbed this, her entire worldview reorganizing itself around this revelation. "You gave that up tonight. Your anonymity, your peace." "Why?" William looked at her, really looked at her, and Alexandra felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with her position or power. "Because some things are worth more than peace. Some people are worth saving, even if it costs everything." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Clinton Hayes. "Alexandra, thank God you're safe." Clinton's voice oozed false concern. "Where are you?" "I need to coordinate with you about the security breach." William grabbed the phone before she could answer, switching it to speaker. Tell him you're at the police station. Tell him you need him to meet you there, with the security footage from tonight." Alexandra did as instructed, noting the slight pause before Clinton agreed. When she hung up, William was already texting someone. "Clinton's your inside man," he said. "I saw him signaling the gunman, texting during the crisis. He knew exactly when and how they'd strike." "That's impossible. Clinton's been with the company for—" "Check your vault," William interrupted. "I guarantee something's missing. Something only someone with Clinton's access could have taken." 2 hours later, Alexandra stood in the Sterling Industries vault with federal investigators. William had been right. The prototype quantum encryption drive a device worth hundreds of millions in the wrong hands was gone. But more damning was the security footage William had somehow preserved before Clinton could delete it, showing the security chief disabling cameras and providing the gunman with access codes. Clinton arrived at the police station full of bluster and concern, only to find himself surrounded by FBI agents. The look of shock on his face when he saw William standing beside Alexandra, no longer the invisible janitor but clearly someone of importance, was almost worth everything. "You," Clinton sputtered. "You're just a janitor. Just a janitor who noticed you've been copying classified files for months," William replied calmly. "Just a janitor who documented your meetings with foreign agents in the parking garage. Just a janitor who made sure every piece of evidence was backed up where you couldn't reach it." The investigation revealed Clinton had been selling corporate secrets for 2 years, culminating in tonight's attempted theft of the encryption drive. The gunmen, captured trying to flee the city, were mercenaries hired through Clinton's connections. The security chief had counted on the chaos to cover his tracks, never imagining that a janitor would be watching, documenting, and ultimately stopping his plan. In the aftermath, as dawn broke over the city, Alexandra found herself alone with William in her office. The blood had been cleaned, the broken glass replaced, but the night's events had left invisible marks everywhere. "The board will want to reward you," she said, pouring 2 glasses of exceptionally expensive scotch. "Name your price." William accepted the glass but shook his head. "I don't want money." "Then what? A position?" "Head of security is obviously open." He was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the sunrise painting the city gold. "I've been hiding for 5 years, he finally said. "Punishing myself for a decision that haunts me every day. Tonight reminded me that hiding doesn't change the past. It just wastes the present." Alexandra moved closer, drawn by something she couldn't quite name. "So what will you do? Maybe stop hiding. Maybe see what happens when I let myself be visible again." She raised her glass. To visibility, then. They touched glasses, the crystal singing a clear note in the quiet office. William noticed how the morning light caught in her hair, turning it to spun gold. Alexandra noticed how his eyes held depths she'd never thought to look for before. "I owe you dinner," she said suddenly. "Not as CEO to employee, just as Alexandra to William." He smiled, and she realized she'd never seen him truly smile before. It transformed his face, revealing the man beneath the careful control. "I know a place. Nothing fancy, just good food and honest conversation." "Honest conversation," she repeated. "I'm not sure I remember how to do that." "Sure you do. You're doing it now." 3 weeks later, the attempted robbery at Sterling Industries had become legendary in corporate security circles. The media had dubbed William the Guardian Janitor. Much to his dismay, he'd accepted the position of head of security, but only after negotiating terms that included maintaining a small cleaning route. He said it helped him think. Alexandra had changed too. She still wore her power suits and commanded boardrooms, but something fundamental had shifted. She noticed the people who'd been invisible before the cleaning staff, the security guards, the maintenance workers who kept her empire running. She learned their names, their stories, their worth beyond their job titles. On a Thursday evening, exactly 1 month after the robbery, William knocked on her office door. Alexandra looked up from her computer to find him standing there, not in his security chief suit but in jeans and a simple button-down shirt. "You're off duty," she observed. "So are you," he countered. "It's past 8. CEOs don't really go off duty. They do when they have dinner plans." Alexandra raised an eyebrow. "Do I have dinner plans?" William held up a bag from Giuseppe's, an Italian restaurant she'd mentioned loving weeks ago. You do now. Unless you prefer eating alone at your desk again. She should have been offended by his presumption. Instead, she found herself shutting down her computer and clearing space on her desk. You know, most people are terrified of me. Most people didn't see you terrified first. He replied, unpacking containers. Fear is a great equalizer. It reminds us we're all human. They ate and talked, not about corporate strategies or security protocols, but about real things. William told her about growing up in small-town Montana, about joining the military to escape poverty, about the brotherhood he'd found and lost. Alexandra told him about the loneliness of power, about parents who loved their legacy more than their daughter, about the walls she'd built so high she'd forgotten what lay beyond them. Can I ask you something? Alexandra said as they finished eating. That night, when you shielded me from the gunman you didn't know you'd survive, why take that risk? William considered the question. In combat, you learn that some moments define you, not the easy ones, but the ones where everything's on the line. I failed that test once, and 3 men died. When I saw you in danger, I knew I was being given another chance, not to erase the past, but to be better in the present. You didn't fail anything, Alexandra said firmly. I've read your service record now. That mission was compromised from the start. You made the best decision with the information you had. Maybe, but they still died. And how many lived because of decisions you made? How many are alive today because you acted that night in this building? William looked at her, something shifting in his expression. You really see me, don't you? Not just the janitor, not just the soldier, but me. I'm learning to, she admitted. You saw me first, after all. The real me. Terrified and human under all the armor. The space between them seemed to shrink, though neither moved. The setting sun painted the office in shades of amber and rose, and the city lights began their nightly show beyond the windows. Alexandra. William began. Then stopped. Yes? Would it be inappropriate if I... Yes. She interrupted. Completely inappropriate. Highly inadvisable. Probably a terrible idea. I see. I also don't care. This time, William's smile was different, younger, almost boyish. Dance with me. There's no music. Don't need any. He stood, offering his hand. Alexandra Sterling, CEO of a billion-dollar empire, took the hand of William Carter, former janitor and current security chief, and let him pull her into a slow dance to the rhythm of the city below. Her head found his shoulder, careful of the still healing wound. His arms encircled her with the same protective strength he'd shown that night. This is probably going to complicate everything, she murmured. Probably, he agreed. Worth it? She lifted her head to look at him. Some things are worth more than simplicity. Some people are worth the complication. Using my own words against me? If they fit. As the stars appeared over the city, 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances continued their dance. The janitor who'd saved a CEO, and the CEO who'd learned to see beyond power and position. Neither knew what the future held, but for the first time in years, they were both willing to stop hiding and find out. 6 months later, at the annual Sterling Industries Gala, whispers followed Alexandra and William as they entered together. She wore emerald green instead of her traditional red, and he looked comfortable in his tuxedo in a way that suggested hidden depths. They didn't announce anything, didn't make speeches about their relationship, but the way they moved together, the subtle touches and shared glances, told the story clearly enough. Clinton Hayes was serving a 20-year sentence for corporate espionage and conspiracy. The 2 gunmen had testified against him in exchange for reduced sentences. Sterling Industries had implemented new security measures designed by William, protocols that emphasized human intuition alongside technological safeguards. But the real change was in the culture. Alexandra had instituted programs that recognized employees at every level. Understanding now that heroes could emerge from anywhere. The night janitor who'd noticed unusual activity, the security guard who'd risked his job to report concerns, the IT specialist who'd prevented a cyber attack, all were celebrated equally with the executives who closed million-dollar deals. Standing on the balcony of the gala, overlooking the city, Alexandra and William found a moment of quiet amid the celebration. "No regrets?" William asked. "About which part? Dating my head of security? Falling for my former janitor? Or dancing with you that night in my office?" "Any of it. All of it." Alexandra turned to face him fully. "I spent 34 years believing power meant standing alone. You taught me that real strength comes from letting someone stand beside you. You taught me that hiding from the past means missing the future," he replied. "Look at us, teaching each other things." William laughed, pulling her closer. "Although I have to say, I miss the janitor's cart sometimes. It was simpler. You still clean your office every night. It helps me think. Plus, someone has to make sure the new janitorial staff maintains standards." "My hero," she said. And though the words were lightly spoken, they carried weight. "Just William," he corrected. "That's all I ever wanted to be." "No," Alexandra said, rising on her toes to kiss him as the city sparkled below. "You're William who sees everything. William who saves people. William who changed my world. Just William is everything." As they stood together, two people who'd found each other in the midst of chaos, the city below continued its endless rhythm. Somewhere in Harrington Tower, a new night janitor pushed his cart through marble corridors, invisible to most but perhaps watching more than anyone realized. After all, heroes could emerge from anywhere, even from the shadows where no one thought to look. Sometimes, the most extraordinary love stories began with the most ordinary moments. A CEO working late, a janitor doing his rounds, and a violent interruption that revealed the truth, that courage has nothing to do with titles, that worth isn't measured in dollars, and that sometimes the